of all, before we get into actually factoring, let me show you an example where it's already been factored. For example, let's say we had a trinomial, and we did our reverse FOIL, and we got it down to two binomials, like this. But now the extra thing we're adding is an equal sign. Now we are going to be solving, meaning finding what x equals. Now, oh, I heard somebody say 0, and that's an important thing, actually. Let's say, for example, we'll come back to this one in a minute. Let's say I had two things being multiplied, just like I do here. Here I have two binomials. If I have two things being multiplied, and it equals 0, what does that tell me about one of these two things that I'm multiplying, Jerome? One of them must be 0, right? This could be, let's say, 5 times 0 equals 0. Oh, but maybe the b is the 0. Maybe it's 5 for a and 0 for b. 5 times 0, that would still equal 0. So here's the idea. We're going to have these equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0 already, I will show you how to make it equal to 0. But when we start out, this one's already factored, right? I can't do anything to either one of these binomials to factor them. It's equal to 0. That means that one of these two things must equal 0. Just like I said here, maybe a is the 0, maybe b is the 0. Well, maybe this one equals 0. Maybe this first one is the one that equals 0. But maybe it's the second one. Maybe this one equals 0. One of them does, I just don't know which one. It could be either one. So I take each factor. Here's two factors. I take each one. I say maybe this one equals 0. Maybe this one equals 0. And now I solve each one. How do I solve this one? Well, I want to undo plus 2. So I do minus 2. 0 minus 2, negative 2. This one, I do the opposite of minus 5, which is plus 5. X equals 5. Two possible answers. However many factors there are is how many possible answers you have. You take each factor and set it equal to 0 and solve each one. And by solving it, I just mean get the variable by itself. So you'll start out with some that are simple. This one is already factored. Yes? Right now? Okay. Now, next. Another one that's already factored. And equal to 0. And I just want to show you this one just to show this one extra piece. This one is also a factor. Maybe this was the monomial that was divided out. And then what remained was factored down. So this one, even though it's not in parentheses, is also a factor. Maybe the 5n equals 0. Maybe it's the n minus 3 that equals 0. Maybe it's the n minus 4. So if there's more than two factors, it's the same thing, each factor equal to 0 and solve. Here, this is times 5, so I do the opposite, divide by 5. What's 0 out of 5? How much is that? 0. Right, if I have 5 pieces of pie and you get 0 of it, you've had 0 pie. Oh, plus 3 here, so n equals 3, plus 4 here, n equals 4. However many factors you have is how many possible solutions, because every single one of those could be the one that is equal to 0. Now, these first two were already factored for us. We could see the factors. All we had to do was set them equal to 0. So now the next step would be that it's not factored. For example, 2x squared plus 5x equals 12. So not factored, but also, there's a problem with this one, it's not equal to 0. In order to do this, we have to have them be equal to 0. How can I make this one equal to 0? Well, what about if I undo this 12? I have to do it on both sides, but on the right side, 12 minus 12, there's my 0. 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 on the left. Again, we want to think about the correct order for a trinomial, x squared first, then plain x, then no x. Now we need to factor this. The others were already done for us. This one is not. So first, make sure you have it equal to 0. Once it's equal to 0, then we can start factoring. 2x squared, the only way to get it is 2x times x. 12, it could be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm just going to tell you right now, it is 3 and 4 for this problem. It's a -3 and a +4. Now I'm doing that relatively quickly because by now I do expect you all to be able to do this kind of factoring. Here's my 8x and my -3x that combines to make +5. Negative times positive makes a -12. So I did that part more quickly. Again, if you had trouble on the last quiz doing some factoring, you can see here it's only becoming more and more used. So you got to figure that out or ask for help. Now we're almost done. We have made it equal to 0. We've factored it. Now I go, well, maybe this first one equals 0. Or maybe it's the second one that equals 0. Jaden, I'm about to kick you out. Take notes or leave the room. +3 on both sides. We leave the variable alone. I'm doing the other part first, so I add 3. Next, that's times 2, so I do the opposite. You can leave it as 3 halves. You can turn it into 1.5 or 1.5. Any of those are fine. On this one, just one step, -4. So 2 possible answers. Now, I'm just going to show you one more to show you about the next one will be probably as complicated as it gets, and this one is going to be a little more like some of the problems that you did on Friday's homework. So we're going to have to think about our steps for factoring. 18y cubed plus 8y plus 24y squared equals 0. So I already have the equal 0. Let's think back to our lesson 511, Friday's work, with our steps. The first step, put them in order. I need to change the order. The 18y cubed can come first, but next needs to be the y squared. So you still need to think about that as you're going through these. Now, bless you. The next step is, again, this is going back to 511. What can I divide out? What monomial factor can I divide out of all 3 terms? Let's start with the number first. Jim. Okay, a 2 is the maximum that I can divide out, and 1y. Now, remember, that's our first factor, and we need to keep that because we're going to be using that for our answers. Let's see what's left over. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Y cubed divided by y, I get y squared. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Y squared divided by y leaves y. 8y divided by 2y. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and the y's cancel out. Now, I will tell you this is also the pattern square of a binomial. However, if you are still preferring to just do reverse FOIL, that's fine. It's going to be 3y plus 2 and 3y plus 2. Again, I'm doing that part quickly. If you need help on that, please make sure to speak up. You could also write this as 3y plus 2 squared. Now, we take each factor and set it equal to 0. Do I need to do 3y plus 2 equals 0 twice? No, you don't. I want you to know that technically it would be 2 answers, but they're going to be the exact same. Let's do the first one. We divide by 2. 0 out of 2, 0. On the next one, I start by doing -2 first. That leaves 3y equals -2. I divide by 3, and I get -2/3. Technically, there is a third, another -2/3, but you can just list it once if you prefer. Otherwise, the answer's -2/3 twice and 0 once. There's my 3 possible answers. That's it. So this is combining the hard stuff from 511 along with all the other types of factoring, and then the only extra step is to set each factor equal to 0 and solve however many factors there are is how many solutions you should have.